Good afternoon, everyone, and I hope you guys have had a wonderful week. And we're concluding up our first week of study on the Gospels Project. And I posted a little bit of a note um, to the week one thread tonight, so that you guys can kind of see my thoughts on some of the things that I kind of pulled through from that very first small part of Mark's Gospel. And I think if you read the note and it kind of explains it maybe a little bit more in depth, but what we basically see is when we look at Mark's gospel and the simplicity of its introduction, what we pull from that is it seems to me that the earliest Christians were more concerned about what Jesus would have preached, what he would have taught, more than they were about maybe who he was in his identity. Those of us who are familiar with the fundamental dogmas know that the church creeds are really, really very focused on the identity of Jesus. Was he God's son? Was he flesh? Was he spirit? Was he one of the persons of the Godhead? Was he a subordinate person? But it seems like the primitive Christians were really more focused on this is what Jesus taught, and this is the way that he taught. And the message of Jesus, and I think we'll see that as we go through the Gospels, that Jesus really doesn't preach a plan of salvation like modern evangelicals or even Orthodox or Catholic Christians do present a plan of salvation. In other words, a way in which a formula people have to go through to be saved. What Jesus basically talks about is a kind of interfaith, kind of inner walk with God that transforms a person. It produces outward fruit. And this is kind of how he presents salvation, and then he presents himself as a model of that. He is the way, the truth, and the life. Not a formula is the way, truth, and life, or some type of church dogma, but he embodies it. And so I think it just we consider that, we can look at, as I mentioned in my notes, Matthew and Mark seem to be more concerned, and they're a little bit later than Mark. I mean, Matthew and Luke, excuse me, a little bit later than Mark, and they seem to be more concerned with maybe answering some objections to Jesus' claim or his disciples' claim that he was Messiah. So they're going back and establishing this Davidic line. John is written probably toward the end of the first century, and it's really more focused on, you see that emergence of who was Jesus. He was the pre-existent Logos. He was the Son of God, the I Ams. But the earliest Christians seem to be very focused on, well, this is what Jesus said and this is what Jesus did. And so that's kind of setting us up. And I think we're on the right track when we're looking at these Gospels and saying, what did Jesus teach? What was his message? How was he teaching us to relate to God? How is he teaching us to relate to our fellow man? So very excited as we go forward. It seems like we're on the right track. Our next segment will deal with the ministry of John the Baptist, which seems to be the key beginning point for all the Gospels. So get ready to study. I'll post some stuff later on this week for week 2. And I hope you guys are enjoying it and have a great time. And we'll talk to you later.